Today we have news from Indian. This is a all-new Indian Scout. But here's what's interesting, Alex. If you look at the brand new Indian Scout bobber, it looks almost the same as the old Scout bobber, except for the 2-to-1 pipe and some of the engine covers. The power output, it's another 5 horsepower, another 10 pound-feet of torque. From the old bobber to the new bobber, weighs 11 pounds less. Starting price, $750 more. So what's actually new about this bike?
Yeah, if you look at it from a surface level and you just look at the photos, you're exactly right. You might think, oh, there's really not a whole lot that's been changed with the Scout. But if you start digging into it, which we're going to do in this video, we have all the info for you here, just about everything was actually changed. So yeah, let's jump right into it. And the biggest change comes with the engine. So it's an all-new 1250cc V-twin, which is replacing the old 1133cc engine. So quite a big jump in displacement.
It is, and it's still a 60-degree V-twin. There are a lot of similarities to the old engine, but it's a bigger bore. So internally it is different. It's the same stroke as the old motor, but one of the biggest differences here is it's a much higher compression engine. This new motor is 12.5 to 1 compression versus 10.7 to 1 compression in the old motor. And most of these bikes, all but one, are making 105 horsepower, so just that extra 5 horsepower. But one special model here, the 101 Scout, is actually making 111 horsepower. And we'll talk a little bit more about the 101 Scout in a second, but the other change with the motor that you can see from the outside is that they did change up the engine cases a little bit. So the older Scouts you could recognize pretty easily by that machined section around the top end of the motor that gave it a very distinct look. They've changed up that design a little bit. They've made it a little more simple, but it's not just the motor that they've changed.
Yeah, the engine's a good thing to look out for if you're trying to figure out whether it's the new or the old Scout, but a bunch of things that aren't so easy to pick out with your eye, like a new steel frame, a new mid-frame, and a new rear subframe design. So pretty much the whole chassis of this bike has been tweaked or redesigned in one way or another. Also, if you look at the tank, very similar style and shape to the tank as before. Still very clearly a Scout, but you gain a little bit of fuel capacity, not a whole lot. It's now 3.4 gallons instead of the old 3.3 gallon tank. Still a very low seat height, just like the old Scout at 25.6 inches. But the styling has been tweaked a little bit so that, yeah, besides the engine cases, if you start to dig a little deeper, there are some minor differences here and there that will set this new Scout apart from the old one we've seen for the past many years.
Well, and design has been a winning formula, I think, for Indian on this motorcycle. It's a good-looking bike. It has been, and so they've kept a lot of that. One of the biggest differences that you'll notice is that the older Indians have 2-into-2 pipes. These new bikes have 2-into-1 pipes. It'll be interesting to see how these motorcycles sound as well, because there's probably going to be some amount of difference there. But they've kept a lot of that design and reworked things a little bit. So you won't notice any huge differences in the styling. But one thing that is really cool about this new lineup of Indian Scouts is this new 101 Scout. And if you know Indian motorcycles, that's a very iconic name, the 101 Scout, taken from the iconic 1928 101 Scout, which was one of their most popular and most revered bikes of all time. It's a legend for Indian, and they've taken that name and applied it to the most top-of-the-line bike in this whole lineup.
Yeah, so if you want the Scout that's really ready to tear up the roads and has every bit of performance, top horsepower, top suspension, top brakes, this is the one you want. Because up front, it has inverted forks, which are adjustable. The rest of the Scout lineup gets a standard motorcycle fork, whereas these are inverted. So obviously going to be better for cornering, gives you a little better feel, or a lot better feel in my experience. Also in the rear, fully adjustable piggyback reservoir rear shocks. So a ton of adjustability there as well. Twin shocks on the other bikes as well, but you don't have the piggyback reservoir and the adjustability. You're only getting all that capability on the 101 Scout. And then if we look at brakes, Brembo brakes and a pretty massive set of 320 millimeter discs up front. So a lot of things on this bike performance-wise that set it apart from the rest of the models, in addition to a special seat and some risers that are unique to the 101. But there's a lot there for the top-of-the-line model. It's not just an appearance package. There's a lot different on this bike.
Yeah, and it's the only one of this lineup that's also got dual discs, in addition to being the only one with inverted front forks and the piggyback reservoir on the rear shock. So a good bit of content, as there should be, because the 101 Scout is not cheap. The starting price on that bike is $16,999, so it's pretty expensive. And yeah, that puts it at the very top of the lineup. But let's work our way down the list of some of the other bikes. I also want to say a quick thanks to our partners over at Rider Justice. Scott and the team there have been supporting our channel basically since day one. So if you're ever in an accident anywhere in the country, whether it's on a motorcycle or in a car, make sure you call Scott first. The next one down the line, the next most premium bike that they've got is the Super Scout, which gets you a quick release windshield, bags for touring, wire spoke wheels, and a passenger seat. And that one is $16,499. So a couple $100 cheaper. And that's going to be the more spec'd out touring model of Scout if that's what you want to do, kind of a long haul cruiser.
Now, if you want to stick with that classic style, but you don't necessarily need the features of it being a touring bike, you can look at the Scout Classic, which still gives you the wire spoke wheels and the enlarged classic style fenders that come further over the front and rear tires, making it look like a more old school bike. And that MSRP is $13,999, so 14 grand.
Yeah, and that bike also has a good bit of chrome on it, so it's definitely the more vintage, classic kind of spec. But if that's not at all what you're going for, you could go for the Sport Scout, which gets you a separate riser. So it's got a unique riser, unique ergonomics. It's got a 19-inch front wheel, a headlight fairing, and a special seat. And that bike is $13,499. But the most affordable one on the list is the one that I feel like I see on the road most often.
Yeah, that's going to be the Scout Bobber, which has a really kind of mean, sinister look to it. And that's because, first of all, they're showing it off in this pretty cool matte black colorway that just, again, gives it that sinister look. But lowered suspension, so you drop down from 3 inches to 2 inches of rear travel on this model. And like Kase said, these are the ones you probably see most often because they look really good and the price is really good on them too. So $12,999 MSRP. So 13 grand is the cheapest you're going to get one of these.
And there are a couple different trim levels that you can get for these bikes. So all of the standard bikes get ABS, they all get LED lighting, and they all get an analog gauge at that baseline. But if you want to opt up a little bit, you could get the limited trim, which gets you ride modes. That includes sport, standard, and tour. You also get traction control, cruise control, and you get a USB, although they didn't specify if it was a USB-A or USB-C, but there's also one package above that.
Yeah, which is the Limited Plus Tech package. So that'll give you everything in the Limited package, like the riding modes, traction control, cruise control, USB port. But you also get a nicer 4-inch touchscreen display, which you can look at the weather on, navigation, you can see traffic, and you also get keyless ride availability too. So you don't need to actually stick a key in the ignition to get the bike going. This is available as a package on some of the lower end bikes, but if you opt for the 101 or the Super Scout, this Limited Plus Tech package comes standard. You get all the features available on the bike.
Which is good because both the 101 and the Super Scout are obviously on the premium end of the price spectrum for motorcycles of this size and this category. So you would hope that they would get all that tech, and they do. And there's also going to be a number of different accessory kits that you can get for these motorcycles through the dealership, all of that kind of stuff when these bikes become available. And Indian says they're going to start shipping these units around May. So actually pretty soon around the corner, we should be seeing these start to show up.
Yeah, really excited to see these start to hit the road. We're in that time now where obviously all the motorcycle manufacturers try and get their bikes landed here in the States at the start of summer. So when everyone's shopping for their new bikes, they're available at the start of riding season. And so that's why we're seeing an influx of new bikes being announced and hit dealers right now. So yeah, if you already own one of these, maybe not a super huge upgrade, although if you're going to the 101, I mean, that's a good amount of power and some nice features on there. If you own, like, let's say you started with a Scout Bobber a couple years ago and now you want to stay with the same bike, go up to a 101. I could see that being a worthy upgrade, but from like the base model Bobber of last year to the new Bobber, maybe not as much.
If you already have a Scout Bobber, there's nothing compelling enough here to make you upgrade, but if you are already in the market for one of these Indian Scouts, now they've just got more features. They are moving up a little bit price-wise, but you get quite a bit for that extra money. So it's a nice evolution to see, and even in their presentation, they said evolution here, not revolution, but to me at least, the most exciting thing here is the 101 Scout, and hopefully Indian will shoot us an invite to get out on that bike and actually ride it, because riding them is a lot more fun than looking at pictures of them and talking about them.
I agree. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some seat time on this. Drop us a comment down below and let us know your thoughts on this new bike. Will you be picking one of these up? And if you are, why? If not, what's missing for you?
Yeah, and Indian, if you're listening, send us a bike or send us to the bike, please. We want to ride it.
There you go. See you next time.